Hi. This class is really specific for if you have reoccurring low back pain, um, and you wanted to kind of find some relief as well as kind of keep that back pain at bay. Um, that being said, everybody's back pain kind of stems from different reasons. If you have a lot of low back pain, or any back pain at all, I would kind of encourage you to seek somebody like a physical therapist or even a chiropractor to find out what your trigger point is. Um, and then you can kind of work with strengthening and stretching those areas. So, this is going to be a really general and a couple of things here. If you are in the midst of some pretty severe back pain, like you're feeling some intense twinging or searing pain, this may not be the time to start a practice. Some of the restorative poses that we're going to do might be okay, but not some of the strengthening. So be really mindful of where your body is at, how it feels, move slowly. This is going to be a combination of some somatic stretching. So we'll be kind of engaging, turning on muscles and slowly turning them off to kind of incorporate the brain in softening. We'll be doing some restorative, which if you've never taken a restorative class before, your one job is to just totally relax and let your body kind of make the shapes using the props that we have for some opening, for some stretching. There's some gentle stretching and some very gentle strengthening here as well. So move at your own pace, go nice and slowly. And if this is something that you find that maybe it works, it might be a good one to revisit often, as there are some good practices to get those muscles in your back to not only soften, but to develop a little bit more mobility and strength and connection with the brain. So we're going to start out, and it's kind of a prop heavy class. So having some blocks as well as bolsters and even a couple blankets if you have them. So we're going to start out on something that we call instant Maui. So if you were to take some blocks, and you can put them higher, you can put them on the highest setting if you'd like. If you had a chair or a couch handy, you can always use that because you're going to be placing your legs on the top, and you can have a towel or a blanket, even the bottom edge of this curled up, and that's just going to go right in the natural curvature of your neck if that feels good to you, or maybe just flat on the floor. And this is just to relieve pressure and tension on that low back, and also softening in the psoas. So today, we're not just working with low back, but it's all connected, right? The whole body, we're all connected. So sometimes we have different triggers, and oftentimes that psoas muscle becomes very tight, very tense, and it's kind of pulling and causing some pain in the low back. The psoas muscle attaches to the top of your thigh bone and wraps around, attaching to the back of your lumbar spine. So just allow yourself, maybe bring those arms out to the side, palms up. And just take a moment to begin connecting with breath, just noticing your breath right now, becoming aware of the inhales and the exhales, just watching. Maybe even beginning to broaden and expand. So as you expand your breath, let that breath draw deep into the low belly first. Let it expand your waist and your sides, your back body, and let it travel up through the crown of your head. As you exhale, exhale smoothly and softly, letting the low belly soften, letting the ribs soften. On your next inhale, draw that breath in, maybe for a count of 3 to 4, nice and smooth. And just hold that inhale at the top, nice and gentle. We're not constricting the throat. And as you exhale, consider exhaling for a longer count, say 6 or 8. And as you exhale, turning the dial down on holding any tension or stress. So with each count of that exhale, find another muscle that you are kind of turning down the dial, like a volume. Each exhale, your body is melting a little bit deeper into the mat. You're allowing gravity to take hold. Maybe it's some tension around your eyes, tension in your jaw and throat. And today, since oftentimes when those are times come when we are in an amount of pain that seems to linger, we tend to lose our sense of hope. There seems to be kind of a dark emotional feeling that comes with enduring pain. When we're buried in pain, it's really easy to get caught up in negative cycles, negative thinking. And hope is what can carry us out. And our English translation for hope is kind of this abstract, like it's almost like a wish or this idea of an expectation. But the Hebrew word for hope, tikva, it's an actual expectation. And it also means a cord or a rope. And it comes from the root word, which means to bind or to wait for, to wait upon. Dory Halbert from Refuge of Counseling said, Tikva is the rope that we can hold on to when the world seems out of control or when we don't know how to make it through a difficult season in life. So perhaps you have already brought an intention or a mantra with you. If you haven't, maybe consider hope is my cord to better. I look forward to the journey of healing. Or even as simple as I am willing. Oftentimes, pain becomes what closes a lot of doors. Just allow whatever it is to be there. Keep that breath Smooth and deep inhaling, and that long and slow exhale to maybe begin that journey of letting go of some tension. And a lot of today is kind of coming back to that relaxing. Sometimes that's why our backs become inflamed, is because we're holding tension in other areas or we are using other muscles beyond what we should because of tension and stress. Allow yourself a couple more big, deep inhales, and maybe even some cleansing breaths here. So as you exhale, release your jaw. Let that breath out. And then as you're ready, really slowly and just moving in stages. So maybe first bringing soles of the feet just to the top of your blocks here, just taking a moment. You can even windshield wiper your knees back and forth here, nice and gently. So we're not looking for big movements in the spine unless your spine is already in a space to do so. And then moving now, bringing soles of the feet towards the mat. And you can move these bolsters and blocks off to the side. Make a mess. We'll get back to those later. So just allow soles of the feet towards the mat, about hip width apart. And just behind, maybe a little bit out of reach. So it's not directly underneath the knees as say maybe when we come into bridge, but setting them a little bit more forward. Palms can be up. I kind of prefer palms down for this, but feel free to play as we move. So just consider here the most neutral point you can. So softening of the hips, there's a softening in the belly. There's no engagement in the legs right now, just neutral. Tops of the shoulders releasing down towards the mat. And just take a moment here to notice the back body. Notice where maybe your hips are in contact with the mat and where that point in low back lifts off the mat. You notice maybe there's a small space. Maybe it's not much of a space at all for you, depending on the curvature of your lower back. Then notice where your mid back is touching the mat, shoulder blades, tops of shoulders. Notice the space of your neck, if there is one, where the back of your skull is resting on the mat. And this is where we're going to begin some gentle somatic stretching. So we're going to start by engaging the muscles in the back body, and then slowly, we're going to be turning them off. So as you create this tension in the back body, it's only tension that is manageable. So we're not creating a ton of tension in the entire body, just some muscles in the back. So find relaxation points in your face, in your neck, in your shoulders. And then as we begin to slowly disengage those muscles, and then once you've slowly turned those muscles off, finding this neutral point again right here. So getting this feel of neutral that we will come back to, but very, very slowly. So first we're going to take an inhale and draw that inhale deep into the space between your hip points, allowing low belly to really fill up. Let that breath climb up your spine, expanding into the ribs, expanding up into the collarbone. And as you exhale, slowly release that breath, soften the belly. This time, as you breathe in on that inhale and expand the hips, we're going to press the hips down. So there's almost a slight tilt forward of the hips, as if your pelvis were a bowl and it was spilling gently on your toes. But it's more of a pressing the hips down so you feel that activation in the low back. You might even be feeling it a little bit in the upper back. And as you exhale, slowly, slowly, through the count of 8 or maybe even 10, begin to disengage those muscles. So maybe even notice your quads and hip flexors light up. And now we're just disengaging those very, very slowly. Once you've come to the bottom, just allow that neutral, a big inhale, no movement. A cleansing exhale, maybe release your jaw. Next inhale, create that resistance again. Inhale, press those hips down into the mat. Create some tension, not so much tension that you're feeling this a lot in neck and face and shoulders, more the lower half. Let that tension kind of build. And as you slowly exhale, like you're turning the volume down to release that tension. So this is a part of somatic stretching. So engaging muscles and then very, very slowly disengaging in order to create a better connection of mind to muscle. Take an inhale here. Exhale to release. Inhale, fill up that low belly. Last time, pressing those hips in. And exhale, find that release of tension very slowly. So as we create tension in these areas and then ask the brain to slowly turn them off, that we can create a better connection. So then we're turning on and off the correct muscles when we need them. As you release to the bottom, find that neutral of just complete letting go. The belly is soft, the hip flexors are soft. Big inhale in and a cleansing exhale out. This time, inhale deep into the low belly without pressing the hips down. And as you exhale, think of pressing that low back, but almost upper. So just like underneath diaphragm. So right under your ribs, think of that part of your back pressing into the mat on your exhale. You'll notice the hips lift slightly. So we're engaging a little bit higher up on the back. You may even feel it between shoulder blades. And then slowly, slowly disengage on that inhale. Release, soften ribs, soften belly. Deep inhale and a cleansing exhale in that neutral position to just remain soft. Inhale again to low belly. As you exhale, find that pressing. You can bring low back down, maybe not lifting hips a ton. Just think of engaging that core. So core is really lighting up here, front body. And then as you inhale, everything softens slowly, like turning down the dial on all of this tension. Inhale. Maybe sigh it out. Release more tension in that exhale. Inhale again to low belly. Exhale, use that core almost as if you could draw hip points in, drawing everything down to the mat, like lead, really heavy. And as you inhale, you're slowly becoming weightless again, lifting and allowing that tension to melt. Another deep breath here. And now we're going to go back and forth. So as you inhale, press those hips down. As you exhale, slowly release that tension. Find that neutral. Take a big inhale to low belly. As you exhale, press that mid back a little bit into the lower back, back into your mat. As you inhale, release that tension. Exhale here in neutral. Soften everything, release tension in hip flexors. Inhale, press those hips down. Exhale, slowly, slowly release all of this resistance. Inhale, completely neutral. Exhale, press that low back, mid back. Create tension in the belly, tension in the core. Inhale, slowly release. Find that neutral. Exhale. Last time. Inhale, send that breath deep in that space between your hips as you press those hips down into the mat. Feel the core, the quads, the hip flexors light up as you exhale. Slowly release all of that tension. Let the brain turn off each muscle. Inhale here in neutral. Exhale one last time. Draw that navel down. Press the low back, mid back into the mat, creating that tension. As you inhale, slowly, slowly release. Come back to that neutral spine. Take a big, deep inhale. Exhale, release your jaw. Slowly bring those knees into the chest. Give them a nice little squeeze if it feels okay where you're at on your low back to rock from side to side. And those somatic stretches are really nice to do as often as possible. They have a nice articulation of the spine as well as that turning on and off of muscles. So moving the spine, engaging brain, engaging muscle. And then we're going to move on to stretching some more of the psoas. So a couple options, you can bring a block on its lowest setting, so keeping it flat to the mat, lifting up those hips, sliding that block just underneath the sacral area of your hips, so that bony part of your hips not moving up into lumbar spine. If that creates any pain or is really too high, a bolster or even a rolled up blanket is also really handy here. So same place, just underneath that sacral area, not up into the lumbar spine. So here we are in supported bridge, which is also really good pose, just resting here, especially if what we're moving into is going to cause a little bit of a back bend. So if your back isn't ready for that, go ahead and stay here. This is an incredible pose to kind of lift up and off of the low back. Also creates a nice little blood flow to the upper extremities. If it feels good, you can inhale, bring that right leg up, knee can be bent, flex into that right foot, take an inhale here. As you exhale, let that heel lead slowly down towards the mat, and you'll feel your psoas engage. Just before that heel reaches the mat, point into your foot and inhale that leg back up. You can even place a hand kind of on that hip and flex as you exhale to feel that psoas muscle engage. So we're kind of turning it on right now. Inhale back up. Exhale, flex and lower. So feel that engagement. This time, as that heel reaches the mat, see how much you can just release, let go, let that hip disengage, let the foot fall open, just release. Release any effort in the belly, in the leg, in the shoulders, in your face. If this curving here of your spine is too much, just bring that sole of the foot up and rest. The psoas is a very intuitive muscle. It tends to hold a lot of tension and stress. It is part of our autonomic nervous system in the sympathetic mode. In fight or flight, sometimes the body will curl in, and that is the psoas muscle, keeping those internal organs safe. And whether we have real or perceived threats, the body reacts the same. So even that trauma in our mind can cause the same somatic reaction. So the psoas muscle could curl in on itself, whether that threat is in front of us or just in our head. The body will react just the same way. That's why it's important to bring ourselves into parasympathetic resting, letting the body know it's safe as often as we can. So slide now nice and gently that right leg, sole of the foot towards the mat. Taking a moment there, let the backs of the shoulders soften. As you're ready, you can bring that left leg up, flexing into the foot. Take a nice inhale here. As you exhale, let that heel lead down again. You can place the hand just on that hip crease if you'd like to feel that psoas muscle engage. Just before it hits the bottom of your mat, point the foot, inhale, raise that leg back up. So activating psoas here on purpose so that we can kind of connect that brain muscle connection. Inhale. And then getting the brain involved as we exhale one last time. Let that heel lead down. And as soon as that heel softens towards the mat, allow your brain to tell everything just turn off. And it doesn't need to engage now. The foot can fall open. We'll let the psoas soften. So the psoas doesn't really contract, say like a bicep. It slides more like a tongue. And finding that space of hope. Hope is that confident expectation of good. Take another deep inhale, let the low belly expand, the waist expand. As you exhale, draw that left sole of the foot back towards the mat. And taking a moment, just feeling into the space of your hips, feeling into that psoas muscle on either side. And we'll go ahead and lift up those hips and moving whatever you have underneath kind of off to the side. Bring those feet mat width and then just allowing them to gently windshield wiper from side to side, keeping your upper body soft, so shoulders to the mat. Letting each inhale and draw the knees up, each exhale, release them to one side. And then let them kind of drift to one side. Let your whole body turn to that side. Give yourself a little pause here. See if you can't find neutral. See if you can't just let go. Sometimes we want to pull in and contract. Just soften. Maybe recalling that intention and your mantra. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a place. And then as you're ready, very gently drawing yourself up to seated. So a few options here to help the low back and to create space is if you had a towel or blanket, kind of rolling it up and then just placing your seat near the edge and letting those feet, so one in front of the other, just an easy seated pose. And if that's a lot on those hip creases, because we're really trying to create less tension here today, or if just having this space of the knees down is a lot of tension or pressure on the low back, feel free to use some blocks here. Feel free to use bolsters. Sitting up even a little bit higher, letting the knees drift down can release some of that tension and sitting on the low back. As you're here in the seated position, feel those sits bones rooting down. Feel the crown of the head reaching up. Allow shoulder blades to ease down your back, creating a nice long spine. Then we're going to just make some circles with the torso, keeping sits bones rooted down. So moving easy on that low back, but just to create some movement. As you exhale towards the back, keeping your hands on your knees to kind of round through that spine. So part of sometimes, not all the time, what can cause that pain in the low back is just our lack of mobility. So moving the spine in all directions daily or as often as we can to create a softer spine. There's a lot of sayings in yoga like that the movement of your spine is actually how old you are. So making sure that we keep that spine mobile, keep it supple, and then let's reverse. So move the torso in the opposite direction and only moving in as big of circles as feels good on your back. So if your circles are smaller for now, that's perfectly fine. Inhale, coming forward. And then bringing the opposite foot forward just to kind of even ourselves out. Once again, allow your sits bones to root down. Inhale, bringing those arms up overhead as shoulder blades slide down the back. As you exhale, let that left arm float down. Keep that right sits bones down towards the ground as you reach over with the right hand. So creating space now in the side body. Stretching out all muscles around the spine. Inhale, come back up to center. Exhale, let that right hand float down. Keep that left sits bones down as that left hand reaches over. Inhale, back up to center. As you exhale, cactus those arms, so drawing those elbows back, drawing shoulder blades back, getting a stretch in the upper back now since it's all connected. As you exhale, bringing those hands once again on top of the knees. Take an inhale, lift that heart, and only arch that back. So these are just some seated cat-cows. So as we inhale, and almost think of those hips reaching back, but only as far as feels good, only creating curvature that feels good, and letting that heart lift. If it feels okay on the cervical spine, the back of your neck, you can lift the chin. And as you exhale, hands on top of the knees, draw navel in towards the spine as if someone were behind you, drawing your mid back backwards. Let that chin tuck. Exhale, press all that air out. And move slow here. So inhale, really feel the spine as it articulates upwards. And maybe as the tailbone reaches back, heart reaches up, and the chin lifts. As you exhale, feel that tucking of the tailbone under, that curving of the spine, just paying really close attention here to spine. Paying close attention to the possibilities. That's what hope does. Hope is what's possible. Inhale, one last time on the inhale, and one last time on that exhale. So draw that navel in, round that spine as if someone were kind of drawing your back body, and your hands were creating that resistance to spread the shoulder blades apart. As you inhale, find that neutral spine, allow shoulder blades to glide down your back. And we're going to come back to all of our props again. So coming into a restorative pose, so deer pose, it's one of my absolute favorites. Really nice to stretch the spine. So here I have these towards my left hip. So stacking up some blocks, having a blanket handy as well, or another bolster. These are bolsters, not blocks. So it's towards your left hip. That left leg is out in front. So a couple options. You can take that right leg and just extend it out here. You can bring this leg all the way around towards the back, and you can even kind of lower it so it's in here. And I'll show you, you can even kind of adjust this if it's easier, which sometimes it is on that low back, to leave this leg out. It can be bent. Feel those sits bones root down, shoulder blades glide down your back. Using this core, so twisting from the belly as those sits bones stay rooted down. And you can even angle these a bit more forward. They don't need to be totally to the side. Keeping all this length that you've gathered up here. And it's okay if this hip lifts off as this torso folds over these bolsters. So then you might kind of then feel like, oh, this might feel nice to wrap my leg around here. Some people like to kind of curl up into a little ball as they lean over, and you can place your left cheek down over this. You can keep that twist going and rest your right cheek. And just allow your shoulders to soften around this bolster. So think of the back just kind of blanketing over the top of this.
So we're stretching a little bit into those muscles in the lumbar spine. This is a nice softening of the upper back. It can be a nice hip opening too. So if that right leg, instead of curling in, opens up slightly, we're also getting a little bit of stretch into the hips. But here in this restorative pose, your one job is to relax. So take a big, deep inhale, breathe into that space between shoulder blades. Press your belly against this bolster, and then as you exhale, allow the shoulder blades to melt on either side. Allow the back to soften. There's also research that suggests that hopefulness helps us to manage stress, helps us to relieve some anxiety. It motivates us and keeps us moving forward. And just allow yourself a few more breaths here. Keeping in mind your one job here in this space is to just relax, to turn off all muscles. That melting over this bolster is your purpose here. And as you're ready, bringing your hands on either side of the bolster, using hands to gently press that torso up, moving slow. And then if it helps to bring that foot forward first, so we're not creating a big arch in the back as we come up, go ahead and do so. Maybe once again coming to a little bit of movement from side to side or circling out of the torso just to get that mobility after holding one position still. And then we'll go ahead and rearrange everything. So now those stacked bolsters are coming to your right hip. Right leg is bent out in front. Left leg can come out forward. And I kind of would recommend that, especially if your low back is in a space where it's twingy. Sometimes starting here creates a big crease, a big kink in the low back. So keeping it out in front might be better. If not, feel free to wrap that leg behind first. Sits bones root down. Inhale, find some length here in the spine. Then as you exhale, twist over towards those bolsters, kind of twisting from the core. Allow that torso to melt down. And then you can kind of bring that leg wherever it feels good. It might feel good to leave it out or even curl up. You can even bring a blanket to kind of soften the knees. And again, if it feels good to you, you can bring that left cheek. So continuing that twist, or your right cheek, wherever you're at. Bring that breath, bring that big deep inhale. And as you exhale, allow the shoulders to come to either side, expanding the space between shoulder blades. And again, your one job here is to turn off muscles, turn off tension. Allow the body to rest and find that openness that hope can bring. That willingness here. Allow yourself a few more breaths here. And as you're ready, once again, bringing those hands on either side, starting to press yourself up and then bringing that left leg back forward just to make sure that we're being really easy. Taking a nice big inhale. And then we're going to come to table pose. So if you have a particularly hard floor or maybe some healing happening in your knees, go ahead and bring a blanket, placing it underneath. So working some cat-cows, so nice and slow. And to be honest, I haven't found a single person yet where cat-cows haven't just kind of been like the it thing for their back, just starting to get some articulation, starting to get some movement. And honestly, few cat-cows daily will do a world of good. So you may even want to bring some blocks. It just kind of brings the ground up. It will also soften any extra tension you have in your wrist. So knees are directly underneath the hips. As we start in a neutral position, that low belly is very gently drawing in and up. So if you think of the belly button just really gently drawing towards mid-back, crown of the head forward. But as we take an inhale, those hips lift, low belly sinks down. You can soften into the shoulders, the elbows first, drawing them back, and then kind of straighten and lift that heart forward, lifting the chin. As you exhale, softening back down to the earth, then tucking that tailbone, drawing navel to spine. Press the mat away to broaden the shoulder blades and then tuck the chin. Exhale it all out. Inhale, let those hips lift, low belly sinks, maybe a little softening by bending the elbows back and then opening up the chest. Once again, feeling into this spine articulation. So moving as slow as you possibly can to notice the spine in each of its movements. Notice as the hips lift, how that feels on the low back. Then as it hits mid-back, upper back, even the cervical spine, even to the crown of the head, as you kind of imagine it as a full extension of your body, moving with your body. When we're hopeful, it kind of fosters healthier habits because we believe that there is better that's coming. We become willing to participate and move towards it. And then now coming to that neutral position. And if you have blocks, we'll move into the side and bring the bolsters towards the front. So now kind of working with upper back. So keeping the knees underneath the hips and walking the bolster and the hands slightly forward. So this alone could be a really great core engagement to help work the low back. We need a lot of strong core movement to support our low back. And a lot of times when we think of core and we start working out the core, we're just working out abs. We're not working out obliques. We're not working out back. We're not working psoas and glutes. So core is all of it. It's that whole core. So this is a really nice core engagement. So if you draw your shoulder blades back, low belly is drawing in gently towards mid-back, and you feel it kind of light up. That's the kind of engagement that we're looking for to support low back. So that could be your stretch for today, your strengthening for today. If you wanted to, and your back was feeling okay, to stretch that upper back, kind of walking those hands a little bit more forward, letting that heart melt down, you can take that gaze forward. So our hips are going to stay stacked and only going down as far as feels good to you. You can even bring a block here and let those forehead rest on top of the block at any level. You might even be able to get that forehead really low depending on the flexibility of your upper back. Big deep breath here. Think of the space between your heart is where we're kind of stretching chest muscles, stretching the back, stretching shoulders. So since it's all connected, sometimes we are rounding forward when we're on our devices, the upper back, and that does affect the lower back. That affects everything. So we're just counterbalancing that here. Big deep inhales, cleansing exhale. We're just going to be here for a couple more breaths. Taking that gaze forward, coming out of this pose, and that might feel nice to kind of sit back on those feet and circle out the arms, maybe cactus them.
Another great pose. And I would say just one bolster for this. And maybe this blanket goes directly underneath your hip points, especially if your floor is harder. So very, very gently lowering yourself to the mat. This is going to create a little bit more of a back bend. So really be mindful where your back is at. Bringing this bolster just underneath your ribs, bringing the elbows to the other side of it. So here we're in a relaxed Sphinx pose. So let the lower half, a lot of times when we come into Sphinx, we will engage the lower body by pressing toenails in and kind of really engaging the legs. This time we just want to kind of turn that all off. Elbows are kind of underneath. So letting that bolster create that support, and maybe just letting that heart shine forward. Shoulder blades glide down your back. So there's this little engagement and just a slight little back bend, really soft here, letting the spine be moved in all directions. So this nice supported back bend type direction. Hope isn't denial or that toxic positivity that sometimes we see. It acknowledges the truth of our situation and allows us to be present, but acts as that tether, it's that cord. It doesn't say that nothing is happening to us, that we aren't experiencing pain, that we aren't in a position that is fantastic. It's knowing that where we are isn't where we want to be. Take one more breath here. This time as you exhale, stick out your tongue really far, looking upwards towards your eyebrows, a lion's breath. Getting rid of some stagnant tension, stagnant energy. One more of those, deep breath in. Shoulder blades draw down your back as you exhale. Stick out your tongue really far, eyes towards your eyebrows, and so here we're going to come all the way to our bellies and moving into another somatic stretch. So this one is one that I found, and it's really, really great to get the brain involved in that turning on and off of those lumbar spine muscles. And it's so important. You can stay on your belly, but this is so important because oftentimes what happens, and especially with age, you like sneeze wrong or you get up to answer the phone wrong. And so this helps with that brain activation of these lumbar muscles in our back and when they're useful. And so we're slowly going to be, once again, turning them off and then turning them on, engaging, activating, creating tension in these muscles, and then slowly turning them off. And I've noticed that it has created a much deeper awareness of when I am engaging these muscles. So then I have less of the tweaks of the muscles. Oftentimes we'll engage these instead of glutes, instead of quads, instead of those bigger muscles. And these will activate when they're not needed. So this one is also really important to keep proper form. So as you're laying down here, prone position on your mat. So you're going to bring that left arm and just have it down by your hip. Right arm is going to be bent and your fingertips are going to come by your cheek. We're going to have our left side of the head down towards the mat. So these fingertips are by my lips here on my left side. So right hand is going to be by those left cheek.
left side of my mouth. As you inhale, keep the shoulder blades drawing down the back. Keep everything in this front in line. So the head and neck is not going to come up by itself. Everything is going to move in one line. So shoulders, tops of shoulders stay down. That's the most important part here, to move the head and shoulders in the same line. So if you were to imagine a line, like a string attached to right shoulder blade, and it was going to be drawn over towards left hip. So as you inhale, left leg is going to lift, and you draw that right shoulder blade back, keeping the head in the same line. So the neck isn't going to come up, shoulder isn't coming up, and we're not crunching up here. So everything, so that left leg lifts, right shoulder blade begins to draw back towards the right hip, head stays in the same line. As you inhale, you lift. As you exhale, slowly, slowly, keeping the shoulder blade gliding down your back, head and neck in the same line, everything releases back down towards the mat, nice and slowly. Once you get towards the mat, just let go. Soften. And then come back, shoulder blades gliding down your back. So soften the tops of the shoulders. As you inhale, left leg lifts. Right shoulder blade is drawing, like if someone has a string drawing towards your left hip, that right shoulder blade lifts. So you'll notice this muscle towards the left of your spine lights up. As you exhale, slowly lower down. Releasing that tension nice and slowly. Once you get to the bottom, just soften and melt. One more time on this side, shoulder blades gliding down. Inhale, lift up that left leg. Bring that right shoulder blade. Everything moves in the same line. So once again, don't let that shoulder draw up towards your ear. Don't let the neck lift. The chin stays in line right where it's at. Lift that shoulder blade up. Exhale. Let everything drop towards center. Now the right hand is going to stay back down, bringing that left hand up. So right cheek towards the mat, fingertips towards the right of your mouth. So kind of by that right cheek. Shoulder blades gliding down your back, tops of the shoulder is softened. As you inhale, now the right leg lifts, and that left shoulder blade, as if there was a string attached to the left shoulder blade, drawing back down towards right hip. As you exhale, slowly, slowly lower everything back down towards the mat. Nice and slow. Once you get to the bottom, just find that release, that nothingness. As you're ready, again, draw that shoulder blade down. Inhale, right leg lifts. Draw that left shoulder blade back towards right hip. Exhale, slowly lower down. And this is one, if you're actively feeling a lot of twinging and pain in your back, this may not be the time. This somatic stretching and strengthening is better for when you're not actively in a ton of pain. Last time, as you inhale, everything on the top stays in line. That shoulder blade lifts. Send it towards that right hip. And exhale, lower. Soften everything down. And then to counterbalance all of this, so moving slow, bringing those hands by your side, engage core to lift up, or you can even roll over if you're in some pain now, just kind of tucking into a fetal position and then rolling over. I like to have a blanket for underneath my knees. We're going to come into a restorative child's pose. So if you have some bolsters, setting those up, toes together, knees wide, bringing those bolsters towards your belly, taking a nice big inhale. Then as you exhale, just allow yourself to melt over this. Find that release of a lot of tension in the low back. You can have your forehead down. You can have right side or left cheek down. Take a big deep breath. Let that low belly press against the bolster. Travel up your spine. And as you exhale, allow your back body to blanket over the top of the bolster. Hope is rooted in waiting. And so, kind of using that space, there's some things that we can do to cultivate hope, to bring ourselves into that space of willing. And the first one is to seek on inspiration. That contributes to your hopefulness because then you can see a larger picture. We can kind of get a better view when we seek out things that inspire us or that bring us awe. And it becomes what grounds us to what's not only possible, but those things that are the most important to us. Your one job is to relax. So just breathing that big, deep inhale. Slow release of the exhale. Turning off all engagement, that upper neck that you might be trying to hold up, and letting the hips soften, letting the ease of tension all around your spine. Allow yourself a few more breaths here. Take a deep and cleansing inhale. Really inflate the low belly, inflate that upper back. And as you exhale, slide those hands towards either side. Use that breath in the exhale to press you back up. And then we're going to make our way down the length of the mat on our backs. Moving nice and slowly. And keeping soles of the feet towards the mat, just allow the body to land. Then keeping that left sole of the foot down, we're going to cross the right leg over, flexing the right foot. Right knee stays open. As you draw the left knee into the chest, you can use your right elbow to kind of keep that right knee open. A lot of times our lower back pain can come from these muscles in a lot of different glute muscles. So I specifically will get a lot of lower back pain from piriformis, which we'll stretch a little differently in just a moment. But keeping the outer hip stretched, keeping the glute muscles stretched will help in some instances of back pain, depending on if that's where yours is. So this is a really nice stretch to do often. And then Slowly releasing, keeping the right foot flexed, taking hold of the right foot with the left hand, right knee with right hand. Just release the left sole of the foot towards the mat. So keeping this flexed, and then maybe not so much this 90-degree as the knee draws in a little bit slightly and the foot is going to go like back. So it's not completely 90. And then just gently lifting that knee. You can straighten the left leg, keeping this right foot flexed. So just drawing that knee towards, right knee towards that left shoulder. So it's almost like if you were lifting that leg up and to the left, flexing into that foot. You might notice the stretch, and then you can kind of even move from side to side here, just being really mindful of your knee. And we're getting a little bit more into that upper glute piriformis. That may be or may not be what causes a little bit more of your low back pain. Now releasing that, you can bring left sole of the foot towards the mat or extend it. It could also be hamstrings, so lengthening here. And you can use a strap, which I will grab. Or a rubber band. Towel works. So if you have a towel or a strap here, kind of gently working into that hamstring so the knee can be bent any amount, and just slowly allow the shoulder blades to stay soft towards the mat, and just slowly bring that strap kind of over towards the top of your head, flexing into the foot. Deep inhale in and a slow cleansing exhale out. And release that. Bring that right sole of the foot down towards the mat, crossing the left leg over, keeping the left foot flexed, and draw that right knee into chest. You can use your left elbow to press against that left knee to keep that open. So another step as we're in that space of waiting is to re-identify your goal. So hope brings clarity and vision. It helps to define what you want and can create that persistence to keep moving forward, to keep moving towards what you want. As you exhale, bring that right sole of the foot down. You can extend the right leg if you'd like. Keep that left foot flexed, taking hold of the left foot with the right hand, left knee in the left hand. And once again, just draw that left knee as if it could go up and towards your right shoulder, creating that stretch a little bit higher now onto the glute, and then maybe even side to side. So moving it towards the knee side, towards the foot side. Just a gentle back and forth, stretching into different areas of your glute. Then releasing that. And you can use a strap or just use your hands to stretch into the back side. So the strap can go around the ball of your left foot, knee can be bent, flexing into the left foot. Gently draw that leg or the strap kind of up over towards the top of your head. Shoulder blades softening towards the mat. Another really good pose to do often to create some length in the back body is downward dog. So we didn't do that today, but it's a really great pose to find flexibility along the back body, which keeps the lower back a little bit happier. And exhale, release. can place that strap to the side. Draw those knees into the chest. Give them a nice little sway from side to side. A nice massage to upper glutes, low back. From here, you can bring your arms out like a T, bringing those legs to a 90-degree angle. And if you're, again, having some back issues, it's perfectly fine to just bring those legs down towards the mat. We're just doing some spinal twists, so keeping them down towards the mat and lower as you then move your knees to the right, keeping left shoulder blades towards the mat. Or you can engage the core if you keep your legs up, gently letting them roll to the right as that left shoulder blade stays to the mat. Gaze goes over to the left fingertips. So as we're waiting in that hope, just taking time to appreciate your setbacks, that they might occur, and often they do. You don't always have to, but to keep moving through them, and then noticing what they've taught you. Appreciating those setbacks for the lessons they've given you. The opportunities to learn, if only we pay attention. And I think hope does that. Hope allows us to increase our attention to the present moment and gather up what we need to keep moving forward. As you're ready, take a nice deep inhale. Cleansing exhale, release your jaw, let everything melt down to the mat. Inhale, once again, that space between your hip points. Either just bring those knees back up towards center, moving, keeping feet towards the ground, or drawing them up using core, whatever your back is kind of in the mood for today. If it's feeling a lot of tension, go ahead and keep those knees down. Then draw the knees over towards the left as right shoulder blade stays down towards the mat. Or you can kind of keep them hovering, engage core. So think of those that engaging that we did beforehand as we drew the core in, press that lower back down, and then draw those knees to the side. Hope actually can give us so much, allowing us to nurture the connections to those cords that we hold on to. So it can be one thing, it can be so many things all at the same time. It just taking hold of whatever that is, whether it's God or universe, spirit, it's could be self, be the people that are closest to you, and hope allows us that space to nurture those connections. These twists are really nice for the spine. They open up the chest, articulating the spine in a different direction, stretching out hips, stretching out outer thighs. Take a deep breath. Let that inhale draw towards the low belly. Exhale. Release tension around your eyes. Inhale deep into the low belly once again. As you exhale, firm up your core to draw those knees back. Whatever feels good to you. You can slide feet along the floor. You can let them hover. And so the final pose that I'm going to leave you in
So there's a couple of options, but one of my favorite and one that often feels really, really good to relieve a lot of the tension in low back is legs up the wall. So we'll use this here since I don't have the best wall setting. So if you bring a bolster close to the wall, setting your hips right next to it, and maybe even kind of sitting up on that as you get inch as close to the wall as you can with your hips, and then bring your feet up. So this is just a really beautiful pose to soften into the psoas muscle, to almost turn off all engagement. It also creates a little bit of stretch in the low back, as well as softening that tension in the low back. So feel free to stay here if this feels good. And I have one other option. Sometimes that position doesn't feel good to get into. So one more option, which is also really nice, not only for low back, but for hips as well, is to create kind of like a little incline here with a bolster. I like to bring a blanket, just a slight little roll, so it's like a nice little soft incline here. And then resting back on this, soles of the feet can be together, so it's kind of like a reclined butterfly. This opens up some of those hips, and it even feels really nice to bring your hands to the top of your thighs, kind of creating a little traction, pressing down. So it's almost like as if someone were creating that traction, pulling your spine a little long. You can use some props here to, as well, underneath your knees. You can even lift this up if that feels better. And sometimes this feels better for whatever reason your spine feels like, but find one of these poses to rest in, whether it be legs up the wall or even Savasana might feel better, just completely reclined. And this is the pose that I will leave you in. This is your final rest. Allow yourself this space as long as you possibly can. It's so important to give our body rest, to allow the body space in the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, letting the body know it's safe. And this is the space where our body heals. It's space where our mind can quiet. So just allow as much time as you possibly can in whatever final resting pose you found yourself in. And I'm going to leave you, my quote that I leave you with comes from Amanda Gorman. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. And I thank you so much. I hope this helped with finding some relief and something that you can continually come back to work towards less pain and feeling a lot more free in your body and able to do a lot more things. I thank you so much. Keep resting, keep in this pose, and when you're ready, come out very slowly, very gently, and then you can move back into your day, but just move really slowly out of whatever resting pose that you're in. Have a good one.